everybody, and thanks for coming back to another episode of the Velo podcast. My name is Mike Levy, and today we're going to learn how to organize a gravel race. More specifically, what it takes to organize SBT Gravel, Steamboat Gravel, one of the premier gravel races in North America. And I'm going to be honest with everybody, I could barely organize anything. My life is burning down around me right now. Will has been asking me to fill out TPS reports for the last, month or so. I can't even organize my breakfast. So the idea of organizing a huge gravel race where thousands and thousands of people come, safety issues, permits, road closures, insurance. Amy, I'm sure I'm leaving something else out.
Yeah, that's a handful of the operations side, but yes, that and much more.
Yeah, exactly. That it breaks my brain. So today, lucky for me and lucky for us, we have Amy Charity with us. She's the co-founder of SBT Gravel, Steamboat Gravel, which has been around since 2019 in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Now, to help me with some race organization questions, I also have Velo editor Will Tracy here, who has also organized some races in the past. So I think he's going to have some good questions for you, Amy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a long time since I did that. That was in college, and I was like 19 or 20, and the most stressed out I've ever been in my life. So I'm really interested
That's ambitious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was
it.
like I was in the club, and they were like, "Hey, Will, no one else wants to do this job. You should do it." And I was like, "Okay."
That's how those usually happen. I'm sure you learned a lot.
I learned so much. That's one of like the two biggest real life experiences that like got me to where I am now. So I've learned so much doing it, but excited to learn what it's like at this next level.
She's 19 years old, organizing races. I was barely figuring out how to wash my own clothes at 19, Will, so
that wasn't that much further ahead of you on that. But
Amy, you just got back from a different race. We're going to spend the next hour and a bit talking about SBT Gravel, but you just got back from Tracka. How are you feeling? How did it go?
Yeah, I had heard so much about Tracka. It's essentially become, for those that don't know, the biggest gravel event in Europe, and they attract approximately 4,000 riders of all abilities. And so I went really to see what they do over there and to understand it. I did participate as well, but that's kind of the much less interesting story. They do a phenomenal job. I'd say Girona is where it takes place, and Girona is a cycling hub in Europe. It is a very cycling friendly city. It's a place where pro cyclists go to make it in Europe. And so it was by default, it's a great destination. And the owners behind it are very passionate. They're from Girona, and you can see the love and attention that they put into the event and how it pays off. And it really creates this incredible vibe. So the things that really stood out to me, one, they have this outrageously long distance, and it's in the 500 kilometer range. That's one day. There's another day that's 360 kilometers, and then a 200, and then the 100 kilometer. And for them to put on different races, different days like that, and keep the energy flowing is just incredible. But it was a great race. I can see why the popularity is there. They have the sponsors that are there are very much engaged in the event. The riders are from all over the world and excited to be there. And it's interesting to me when you feel a tone and at an event. And we think a lot about the energy level and the positivity, and we try to create something similar. And it was really fun to see how they do it. And I can't say enough positive. Despite it rained all day, the day I raced, it was slimy single track, which is not my specialty, but it was still a really positive experience.
Yeah, that was the reason I brought that up, was as a race organizer, as a racer too, and a race organizer,
Yes.
for you to go to these events, you're not just going there just thinking about your day on the seat, you are looking at this thing in a whole different perspective than somebody there, maybe taking notes, learning some things, that kind of stuff.
I can't go to any event now without noticing signage, how many police officers are there, how many porta potties are there.
It's a big
They're thinking about permits.
These are like, that is all I think. No, but even if it's not a bike event, I'm still like, oh, look at this branding, look at the signage, it's everywhere. Look at, that's all I see and think about. And that really was the purpose of going, was to see what sponsors did, see if there's any new ideas, see how their live stream worked, just really experiencing it from a rider and a race organizer perspective. And that's something that I go to a lot of events, and so do other race directors. So we have, at SBT, I always encourage other large gravel event directors to come, and we're all friends and we learn from one another. And I think we all can build on what we're doing. Gravel's still relatively new, and so there's a lot we can do and learn from other races.
Yeah. Amy, I bet it's kind of a big compliment when you see other races using something that you started. Is there something that comes to mind that that?
Yeah, I think that the mass start approach was something like, it goes back to road racing and sort of I shouldn't say demise, the way that road racing is really not as popular as it once was in the US. And I think that it got very separated, segregated, categorized, and gravel threw that all to the wind. And gravel was really, this is for everybody. And I think that part of that was we love the mass start environment, and just like getting and really trying to get the tone of, this is friendly, help one another out. And we push that, and we see that at Tracka, and not all events do that. And it's really fun to see what they're doing, and then to create more than just a bike event. So another sort of something that I think went wrong with road racing is, let's say you go to a crit and you show up, you're in a parking lot, you don't talk to anybody, even the person you park next to, you pin your number on, you race your crit, you have a good or a bad day, you get back in your car, you go home, and that's it. And what we tried to do is create so much more than a bike event. And I see that at Tracka too. SRAM, for example, had cooking lessons. They did yoga one day. There's just these activations that aren't even cycling related, and bringing people in, that you form this community over the week. And then by the time you're racing, it's like, oh, we're all friends here. So that's something we've really tried to do in Steamboat. And I saw that replicated at Tracka as well. And it's fun to see. I think it's really what is setting gravel cycling apart. And the reason for its popularity is you don't just go and ignore everyone else and they're your competitors and then take off. And then you tell your friends at home about what happened. You're all part of it together. And so it's really fun to see Tracka do that as well.
Yeah, you raced a lot on the road at a very high level. So it is an interesting comparison, because I imagine, like, back in the day, that's what a lot of the events were like that you went to. Whereas now, a lot of these gravel races are festivals, fun, and, fast people are coming and it's very competitive, but it is like a complete turn from where you were.
It's an absolute 180. And that was, road racing was incredible, and I was fortunate enough to race on the US team in Europe, and I would be places like Tuscany or Czech Republic or Belgium, Netherlands, and I might as well have been anywhere. Like, people would say, "Oh, you're in Tuscany. How's the food?" I was like, "I don't know. We're fed like chicken. Like, I have no idea how Tuscan food is," and never left the hotel room. And the whole idea is don't walk around, don't get in the sun, keep your feet up. And that experience is so different with these events than road racing was. And the others, with road racing, you're on your teams, and those are the only people you interact with. And it was pretty uncommon to spend a lot of time with any competing teams. And that's not the case in gravel. You're out there on your own. At least right now, there aren't teams, and you're riding for yourself. And so that really changes the atmosphere as well. At the amateur level, you can ride with your partner, your mom, your kid, your aunt, your uncle. You can ride with anybody. And so that's such a different feel. It couldn't be any more different than the very serious, rules driven, what you do in a road race and in stage racing. Gravel is really the opposite of that. And yet it brings some of the best elements of it's still cycling. So it's really a way to build the sport.
Yeah. So back when you were doing that stuff, when you were racing on the road and you're in Europe and doing time trials and all those things, were you thinking, I could organize a better event than this? Like, were you thinking about organizing races back then? How did this happen?
No.
How are you doing this now?
I am probably not the example of how one would follow a career path, but I left college and went into financial services. I worked at Capital One, a credit card company, for 10 years, worked in a hedge fund and venture capital company, and I discovered bike racing in my early 30s. And I did enjoy corporate. It was nice working there, and I dabbled on the side in triathlons and that type of thing, but never in racing. So in my early 30s, I started to rise through the ranks in cycling and eventually get on a world tour team, left that career. And it wasn't until after leaving it that I thought, what's next? And at that point, I knew I was done with gravel racing, but I was also not interested in going back into that corporate lifestyle. And I lived in Steamboat and had just participated in Unbound. At the time, it was Dirty Kansas, and thought, we have these incredible gravel roads in Steamboat, and is there any reason not to put on an event there? And I think that background, I think everything led up to being able to put on a really high quality event. I had a business partner that also had a business background, but was a passionate cyclist. And so when you can combine understanding how the different elements of a business and kind of what would make that work, and have the relationships with cyclists and different brands in cycling, and live in a community that we're lucky enough that it's a great place to ride a bike, all of those elements were contributors. And when we put together SBT, we thought, first of all, what are the barriers, but what are the things that we don't like about road riding or gravel or any other cycling event? And so, like we talked about, we wanted a festival atmosphere, but other things were very simple, like porta potties, which we mentioned. But it was like, you want a ton, you want unlimited porta potties at the start line.
You want too many.
You want too many. You want some that are never used. Yes, that's ultimately the goal. We put a lot of money into porta potties, and it's because we know that's a button for people. That's something that can make or break their day. I am navigationally challenged. I can get lost in my backyard. And so we put signs up everywhere. And that was something that was important, that we wanted to take the stress out of it. So when people come to Steamboat, they just ride their bikes. We put aid stations all over, so approximately every 20 miles. So you don't want to carry all the food and water that you need if you're going long. It's really nice to have somewhere to stop and fill up. So we have coffee on the start line. It's free for riders. And that's because you get to start line way too early, and then you're like, oh no, I didn't have enough caffeine. So we have that. We just thought of all of the things that we want as riders, and then put the event together following that. And not all of those things exist in road racing. And so that's how we created an event that really took off right away. And I think it was having that background of knowing what a rider would want.
Yeah, I think your background makes you probably an extremely good race organizer, because you know exactly what you don't want, like,
yeah.
You want it to be fun and relaxed, less stressful than probably what you experienced in years prior. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. You never think about who the race organizer is when you're just a bike racer. Like, I have no idea who put on we did 50 plus events a year. I have no idea who put any of them on. I just knew, like, oh, I don't like that, or I do like that. And so those are the things. Keeping a race that's safe. Like, even in road racing, you would have issues or things where you're like, oh no, cars are parked here where I'm trying to ride. That's not safe. So what are ways that we can make sure that all of those cyclists doesn't have to worry about those things? It should be a non-issue. Yeah. Like, we want a cyclist not to think about the logistics of what's happening there, and just that, wow, that was a great event.
Yeah. So let's go back to 2019. You didn't just sort of dip your toes in with like a local little, inexpensive sort of small race. You just went right in there with a pretty big field. What advice, looking back at that, what advice would you give somebody who's looking at organizing their own similar-ish event?
Yeah, we've learned a lot over the years. I think that the success, we were really lucky with where we were, but that if someone is looking to plan an event, having the support of your community is absolutely key, and having the right place to ride a bike. And we've learned that with other events that we're putting on of, oh, that place is actually really hard to get to, and there are a lot of barriers, or it's expensive. And that can create challenges that make it harder to put something on. So I think finding that right location is key. But I think what stood out that our philosophy going into SBT was invest in the riders. And so there are so many ways to cut corners in an event. And there are things that just blow your mind how expensive they are. And as an organizer, you're like, God, does anyone even notice that? We have, whether it's the branding that we have for an entire mile coming in, and part of that's for safety, and some of it's for optics, and it's also for pedestrians, and it's for people to see that it's a professional event. And we always wonder, do people care? Do they pay attention? But I think all of the little details of what you're doing from that branding perspective, in providing a great meal to riders afterwards, to giving them a really cool finisher hat that it ties to kind of the event that they did. All of those cost a lot. And when you look at your bottom line, sometimes you think, gosh, we can make so much more money if we just didn't do that. And that was not the mindset we wanted to have. The mindset was, we want people to walk away wowed, and walk away and say, I am inviting 5 friends next year because this was the most fun event I've ever done. And that was really our goal. And so making those investments in the riders up front, I would say, have really paid off over the years, that we're known to be a premium event and having a great experience, and we take it very seriously. And when we hear people didn't have a great experience, we reach out to them. So that's part of it. And it's hard when you're looking at it from a business perspective too, because you don't want to lose money. That's not.
But you have to.
It's a passion
You have
project.
to look at it that way too.
Sure, you do. Yeah, we didn't take salaries our first 2 years. So that was we're doing a lot of work. You take a lot of abuse. You're like, I don't even make any money.
I'm here for free.
Yeah,
Stop yelling at me.
And then they're like, why does it cost so much to do your event? And we're like, you have no idea how much it costs us to put it on. So you hear that a lot, and you have to just stay the course. And we are here to create a great experience, and we need to invest in it. And I do see other race organizers that start really small, and I think it's hard to grow from that, because that's the takeaway. You kind of have one shot to get it right in the beginning.
Interesting.
It's making a first impression.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's that was okay. Okay experience. I don't need to go back.
Yeah. It's almost like if you aim for just to create a little small local event, which is fine, it's never going to be the big thing that you want it to be, the big festival thing that you want it to be.
I don't think they build like that. And I think the timing is very different. We were fortunate in 2019. Gravel was about to explode. If you looked at a calendar in 2019, there were 5 big events that people traveled to, and very ambitious riders went to all 5. And now that's not the case. If you look at any gravel calendar, every single week, the state of Colorado, I would say starting in early May through October, there's more than one gravel event every single Saturday and Sunday. And that's they're tiny. You don't know about a lot of them. They have a couple hundred people, but the market it's borderline saturated. But I think it'd be really hard to put on a small event and grow it into a huge event now in today's age.
It's funny. You say a couple hundred people, and to me, that's a lot of people. That sounds like a huge event, but you have thousands and thousands of people and their families coming. How many full-time staffers does it require to run something like this? How many volunteers?
Yeah, it's a wild operation. So year-round staff, we have 6, and we have a production company that also works year-round, and they have approximately 5 people that work year-round, but they're not full-time. They have other events that they put on. When they come to Steamboat, they bring a staff of approximately 20. And that's just operations. And then we have an entire marketing team. We have an entire PR team. You have moto video teams. And then volunteers, we have approximately 400. So think of the operation that goes from 6 people, like think of an org chart in a business.
I'm having a
like
panic attack for you.
All year long, there's 6 of us that do this full-time year-round SBT staff, and then your staff becomes 400. So if someone who is handing out bottles or working at an aid station has a question, like they can't come to me, they can't come to like the accountant, like think of the layers that you need to put in, because reasonably you can really only manage up to 20 people. They all need a boss. So you have these coordinated levels of people who each one, it keeps going down into layers, and it's weekend only. So it's absolutely madness when you think of how do we get this communication that we need someone to count inventory of how much Martin gels are left at an aid station at the end of it. Like think of how many layers of people that communication needs to get to actually make that happen. It's absolutely bonkers when you think of that. Organizational management is wild in what it takes to have an event work for 2 days.
Yeah, it's, talking to you, I thought we were going to talk about like organizing. Well, we are talking about organizing a race, but what I don't think I realized is that you have to make a company.
Yeah.
Like obviously.
Yeah, no, it's entrepreneurship, like the areas that you become this is like, yes, this is another thing. If someone wants to start a race, they very quickly get their MBA. So it's like you would need your accountant, your accounting team, your finance team, your budget. And these are all conflicting things. So your marketing wants to spend a ton of money, and operations does too. And they have different intentions. And your accountant is telling you no way. And then you're like, which one are we going to do? What can we afford? That's not to mention the insurance side. And and then you hire your PR team has a very different intention. So it's fascinating to manage all of this administratively. So we have somebody who manages our inbox, info@SBT, and she gets 30 emails a day. Like anything from, can I leave a bag there, to this happened to me, can I defer my entry, like can I change my course, what's going to be at the aid stations, like random questions, but all day long she gets questions that she needs to field. So there's just so many pieces that are moving in the operation. It is an absolute full-on business organization, and it's fun to see all the different departments and really understand and see it come to life in a weekend where you're like, wow, I was looking at that as a PDF map, and now it's like that's where that expo booth is.
It's like company assemble, and
yes, exactly.
Everybody assembles.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's like race weekend is fast. You just look around and you're like, God, we made a decision on that, where that coffee was going. And we like, it's so fun to see it come to life. Like it's all just this picture that we're building, and then you see it in action. And it's really cool to get that over the couple of days.
Do you have a challenge getting volunteers? Is that a difficult part of
we
the
are
process?
Really lucky. So our volunteer offer is you get a guaranteed entry the following year, and that's compelling because we sell out by a lot every year. So we get a lot of riders who will volunteer early, and that is we've never had a problem filling it. And that's just, we also give them lunch and a t-shirt, which are exciting, but the most exciting is to not have to go into the lottery for the next year's event.
That was the exact same question. How do you find 400 people who want to do this? But that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And I know I sound like Pollyanna when I say this, but it actually is really fun. Like it is a blast to stand in an aid station and like have this intense 3 hours where you're like saving a cyclist's life when you hand them a Coke. They're just like, oh my gosh, like this is the best thing I've ever tasted. And there's just some really fun jobs like that. Our beer sales are really fun. Merchandise booth is cool. Like you're just like having this opportunity you have no stake in the game really, other than, hey, this is kind of fun. Do you want to buy a trucker hat? Like it's kind of, volunteering can be sort of fun. You're involved in the event. And I think that that's compelling to some people. I think it's fun to feel a part of it. Like spouses do that, like kids volunteer. My dad is like, he hands out finisher hats. He has every year. He's almost 80, and he like, it's really funny. He has a SBT name tag that says the mayor, and I probably have 100 people that come up to me and say, I met your dad. He's really proud. I'm like, Dad, you can't interrogate people. They just finished a race. Like, they don't want to talk to anyone, especially you, about like SBT, but he lives for it. So there's just like, I think there's an appeal to some people to do these different roles in an event.
Handing out the finishing stuff at the end there, I remember being at the BCBR and coming across the finish line and like almost feeling emotional about finishing this thing, and seeing a lot of other people come across the finish line and like just literally in tears as, you know, the whoever at the staff there was handing them their finishing medal or whatever it was. It's an
accomplishment. Yeah, there was a year we had that was like crazy hot, like just not even normal for Steamboat hot. And somebody was like, we need to find a hose. And the person, like, it was a volunteer handing out hats, and he found a hose and he like attached it to Mountain Tap, and he was just like spraying people. And they were like, it was like some of the funniest videos were from that. And it was just like this guy impulsively, like, how can we make their lives better? They're really warm. We're going to like spray them down. And it was so funny to see this like all come together. And he was like making their days, and people loved it. And like in our post-race survey, there was all this feedback on, we love the guy spraying us with the hose at the end. You know, it's like, there's fun stuff like that happens. And like, there are hundreds of examples, and it makes it really fun for riders and for volunteers.
Do you get to race your own event, or is it, that's not an option?
No, I never have. The most fun I've had is, I always get to announce in the morning, and if things are running smoothly, I'm like holding a coffee. That's like a joke I have with our op structure. Like, if we're both holding coffees and like standing at the start line, like, we did this right. And we've been able to do that most years, and it's really fun to send off the riders. And the past 2 years, I've been on a moto following the lead women, which is so fun. And it's like, imagine having previously been a racer, and then when you're on a moto, you're like, oh, I wonder how the front person's doing, and you should just go to the front. Like, imagine if your legs could do that. But it's just like this really cool experience to like be able to scoot around and see where people are, see their faces, like see where attacks happen. That's been my job the last 2 years. This year, actually, we have this Gravel Femmes Challenge, and I have a team with, it's called Founding Femmes. So it's a couple other female race directors, and we are racing on Sunday. So this is more of a test. I will not be a competitive racer. There's no way our team does well in this. However, it is a really good sign of like our team is well established, and really, it's to me, it's like a very proud moment that if I can race, because the first 2 years I was like hanging banners at 4 a.m, and it's like we've come so far, and so to be able to do that event is pretty exciting.
Can you expand on the Gravel Femmes thing? That's an add-on for this year, I think. Is it?
Yeah. Yes. What this challenge was about, getting more women on the start line. SBT's always had approximately 30% females, which it's good in cycling. It's not.
That sounds good. Yeah.
We're not there. We're not where we want to be. We would love to have it 50-50, but right now we're at 30, and that's pretty strong. We separated the ride and the race this year, and what we found after we had opened and closed registration was that there were very few women who signed up for the race. In fact, it was like in the teens. And that to me was like, we can't have, like, what is happening here? And so reached out to women and found out it was like, they didn't feel like racers. So think of the mindset of like, in the past, it's mass start. If you're having a good day, you race it. If you're having a bad day, you ride it. And you don't have to make that decision in December, what you're going to do in the summer. When we separated race and ride, you had to make that decision. Like, what am I? What can I do? And so many women said, I don't feel like I belong as a racer. And that was like, God, how do we solve that? And so we thought that with a little bit of camaraderie, we could talk women into joining teams. So we did teams of 3 or more, and they compete together. It's cross-country style scoring. So if you have 6 on your team, only the top 3 are scored, and it's their placement, the lowest score wins. So that challenge has really taken off. And so we'll have approximately 75 women who are doing this, and we're really boosting the number of women that are doing the SBT race. And that's our whole objective, is how do we break down that barrier? Like what men felt comfortable racing versus riding, like why didn't women? And so this is one effort to try to solve it. I personally think it's really fun, like to go and have 2 teammates that I'll be with from beginning to end. And if we're having a bad day, we go slow, we take pictures. If we're having a good day, we'll work with each other to get a better result. But just giving that sort of support, it takes away a lot of the intimidation. And so I anticipate really growing this initiative, and that would be at our other events internationally to do this Gravel Femmes Challenge. We see a lot of sponsor interest in it. Zwift has given a podium checks for the top teams. So it's helping get more women to the line, which is the overall objective of it. And we're seeing a lot of traction there, and it's our first year. So really I think you're seeing the very beginning of what we hope to do with this, and ultimately get us to that 50-50 male-female ratio for our events.
Just needs some reframing sometimes, like just like a different attitude. Can you do that same event for guys? It sounds fun.
No, I know. I have thought of that too, and I would like, because you probably have the same thought, is like it'd be really fun to ride with, let's say, 5 of your buddies. 2 of them are having a bad day, so fine, like your top 3
and you
keep
push.
Going, you work off of one another, you have this group together. I have thought of that, and I think it's a possibility, because it's really like team racing is fun. Like you're allowed to feel you can have any kind of day you want, and you just like have your people there with you. So yes, that is potential. So we might, I don't know what we'll call it. I've been trying to figure out what the equivalent of Gravel Femmes is for a male team, but we'll come up with something.
I like it. Let me know. I like it.
Excellent.
That sounds fun.
We'll put you on the list.
Let's zoom out a little bit. You mentioned going international. You've got races in Australia and Finland, not just in a different state, different continent. How the heck are you doing that? That's got to be difficult.
Yeah, this took organizational planning to a different level, but the background of it's really fun. So Tiffany Cromwell was she's if I'm guessing most people know who she is, but she's a world tour professional cyclist. She is from Australia, and she's been sort of a legendary female cyclist for years, for decades. And she raced SBT Gravel our first year in 2019. She had a great time, and she came back in 2021 and brought her partner, who is Valter. He's a Formula One driver, and she brought him to do the event. He did one of our courses and also loved it. And he made a comment and said, maybe someday we'll bring a gravel event to my hometown in Finland. And so SBT was definitely like in its prime, and we were thinking, how do we grow and what's next? And so I reached out to him, and I didn't really expect a reply at all. And it was just like, hey, just wondering if you were serious about putting on an event. And he got right back to me. He emailed me back, like him personally, and he said, yeah, let's talk. And so we set up a Zoom for a couple days later, and we just talked about the roads in Finland, and he said, this is a great place to ride a bike. Let's do it. And so we came up with a test ride plan, went out to Lahti, his hometown in Finland, and put together Finland Gravel. And so he's an investor, and so is Tiffany. So after we launched Finland Gravel, Tiffany said, well, Australia is pretty amazing for riding as well. And she's from Adelaide, and it's near McLaren Vale, which is vineyards and much more remote and a great place to ride. And so we went and scoped out Australia and ended up launching an event in her hometown as well. So the three of us are business partners, and we have 3 events, 3 continents in each of our 3 hometowns. And so they, yeah.
Can you just text Valter anytime you want?
Yeah. Yes.
That's crazy.
No, he's incredibly humble. He's very responsive. Yeah. He's a smart business owner. He is, he's really fun, as everyone probably sees on social media, but sometimes we come up with like funny launch ideas, and it's like, yeah, let's do it. He's open. Your budgies are like Speedos for those that don't know. And we're like, let's have you launch a video for Australia and your budgies in my house in Steamboat. He's like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. So he's great. He's the exact personality that cycling needs, I would say. He's an incredibly strong gravel racer, cyclist. His day job is very stressful, and he does both, and he balances both. And he's very much dedicated to bringing people to these locations and creating a great experience. So he's really aligned in what we've been trying to do with GRVL events, and he's been an incredible partner. So yeah, it's fun.
Amy, I don't think I'm ever going to forget. I was down in for the Tour Down Under, so I was there for Rattle Gravel a little bit. But getting to interview Valtteri while he's in a swimsuit on an Australian beach and talking about his bike was probably one of the silliest things I've ever done in this job.
You're like, where am I? What is happening? And he's just like answering very seriously and stoically.
Oh yeah, he was so completely serious about it too. It's one of those days I'm like trying to describe my job to my friends who don't understand what I do.
You're like, he's in a Speedo. Yeah. No, that is classic Valtteri. And it's amazing. And he's very approachable. And that's, it's the other funny thing that like we can appreciate as cyclists versus you go to Formula One and Valtteri, there are 30 people like deep trying to like, they're screaming and super fans, and they can't get near him and they can't get a signature, and they're like, so they'll see him walk by and everyone's like, it's Valtteri. And you go to a bike event and he just walks around and no one knows who he is. And if they do, they just like wave and say hello. And it's like, it's so wild to see the fan base at a Formula One event versus a bike race. And he is just one of the cyclists at a bike race. And it's really, really cool to see that the difference in how people see him and perceive him at the 2 different events.
Yeah. And Tiff, the just recently crowned national gravel champion, between Tiff and Valtteri, definitely some good people to be aligned with, for sure.
Tiff is a beast. She is, she was when I was racing, that was way back, like a decade ago, she was like one of the riders to watch. Like she was my hero. It was like, I was just honored to be in the same like starting line as Tiff, and she's still that strong or stronger. It is incredible to see her longevity, and she's in her, mid 30s and just as strong as she's ever been. And she's an absolute legend as a cyclist. And she is also an incredibly smart businesswoman. She's a great negotiator. She does really well with sponsorship conversations. She loves Adelaide and wants more people to come there. And she wants to grow gravel cycling in Adelaide and is very dedicated to that. So between the 2 of them, we couldn't have, better partners.
Yeah. Good. So left turn a little bit. As a former professional racer, how would you like to see these races covered? Like, it's not easy to cover a gravel race, something that's, really far and long. And ideally, how would you like to see these races covered better?
Oh, it's such a great question. And it's it's a complicated one. And I have a big appreciation for why it is so challenging. So I can tell you, even sitting on a moto at SBT Gravel, where my only job is to follow around the lead women, the first hour, there are 4 packs of cyclists, and they each have, there's 3 men off the front, then a pack of 10, a pack of 15, pack of 20. And there will be a woman in one woman in each of those. And so I know these women I know well, they're my friends. And I'm like, is that LDC? Is that oh, that's not even a woman. Oh, shoot. Like, is that, and I'm trying to find where the racers are, who the racers are. And that is It's really challenging, and it makes it hard to get proper coverage for anyone, but especially for women. So that was the ultimate like switch in us having a separate men's and women's start. Lifetime did that before us. A couple of other races did that before us, and I was hesitant because I really like mass start events. But the reason that put me over the edge was coverage. And I think with men and women starting separately, we've seen this now in Australia. We did that as our first event, and you can follow that race. Now we're just doing very Instagram like updates, and it's something very basic. What I'd say I saw at Tracka that I thought was really well done is they had a screen there at the park where everyone was hanging out, and you could watch Sarah Sturm and Heather Jackson, and they were in this top group of riders doing the 360K, and standing there, we could all talk about it, we could see it, and it was very basic, but they were switching between the women and the men. I think this was also probably shown on YouTube or some other channels. So
yeah,
that to me is a starting point. The dream of getting to where they're having Tour de France style coverage, I will always hope that we get that, and I think we're getting a little bit closer. There is a lot of energy behind women's racing right now. Gravel is tough, especially a long race. Like, I will be the first to tell you, I would never sit down and watch Unbound, like bell to bell. Like, I don't want to see, I don't care. Like, I'm never going to watch an 11-hour race.
Not that interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Ever. Like, and I am like the most passionate cycling enthusiast ever, and I would never watch that. So I think that ideal coverage is towards the end of a gravel event, catching the highlights of it, equal coverage of men and women. In some future time, I think that the more you know the stories of the racers, the more interesting it is to watch them. And so that's true of any sport. Like, if I'm watching
personalities
football game, I kind of care. But if I know the story of somebody, I'm watching it more, I care more. And I think that's really true. It's true in swimming. It's true in like any sport you watch. So I think that there's some really good movement in the understanding who these cyclists are. We all know the personalities of, a Payson or a Stetna. They all, Keegan, we follow them. We understand a little bit about them. We want to know how they do. We know their life stories. So I think that that's helping create interest. But I still think that just a couple hours of the exciting parts of the gravel event towards the end, and then really highlighting these individual stories is the way that we can move to create a little bit of the fans for gravel cycling. I think it's a ways out. Like, I don't think you walk down the street and find a non-cyclist who's going to like seek out that event, but I think we're getting closer in that we're understanding stories via social media, and that people are starting to understand, and gravel racing is exciting. And the fact that we have separate starts now, you can follow the lead men, you can follow the lead women.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, like you hit on, is promoting the personalities, just as much as the racing. People might be fans of the sport and of the racing, but you really pay attention when you're a fan of like the person or a person or some multiple people, and you come back for them, Yeah,
you do.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's a way that it really grows. It's, technology is getting better. That's always been a prohibitor, at least for SBT. We have no cell service on our entire course. So Starlinks and other technology are helping us to at least get coverage out there. But I think that continues to improve, and right to do it. We're always debating to do this well is almost cost prohibitive if you want like pre-produced TV style, TV ready coverage. That's not in, as soon as we get sponsored by non-endemics and they give us 6-figure sponsorships, and maybe we can
NBC
talk. But
comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When we get those Bank of America, like if you're listening, we're definitely into getting sponsorship. But as soon as that happens and you can put some real money into it, then you can create these programs. I think we're a little bit out from that.
Yeah.
Amy, with the new separated race, and it's on like a shorter course that's repeated a few times versus just long 130 miles odd course, do you think it becomes a little bit more feasible to broadcast a race on a shorter course, or is it still just so long that it's not about the same challenges?
I do. So that is, I think that is the most compelling part of doing a circuit race. So it's 37-mile circuit. The pros are doing 3 laps. It's going to be a long day for them, 17 odd miles. With something of that distance, it is feasible to cover it. And I think that it's feasible and that you can have, moto camera who's in the lead with that. They're not out 100 miles from Steamboat. So this format does make it a bit more approachable to cover both the men's and the women's. And so we're looking at that as an option. And we think that is an additional reason that this really works. It's also spectator friendly, which is great. We saw that at Sea Otter, for example, did a circuit race for their pro field, and being able to see riders on multiple laps makes it really fun and entertaining that they go by. We have SRAM is hosting a party there. Ponor Mall is hosting a party. So to have sponsors that are pulling spectators in and making this fun sort of activation area will also get more spectators and kind of more interest in the race. It's not just like you're out in the middle of Routt County. You're somewhere that is 37 miles away from the start or finish.
Yeah. Speaking of the course, where I live, you could pretty much go out on any gravel road at any time, and it's always open. You're probably not going to see anybody else, once you get out there. Like, these are not working roads. Most of them are mostly forgotten, semi-abandoned, but it's very different in Steamboat. Those gravel roads, those are like working gravel roads with tractors and farms. And so last year we saw some challenges with that. How did you work with the community to basically get the race to happen again? Because it sounds like there's some pushback by a few locals.
Yeah. After 2023, we had we got a lot of feedback on our event, and basically what the general sentiment is it's having a negative impact on county roads. They understand there's a positive economic impact to the town of Steamboat, but we go out into these rural roads and they're seeing a lot more cyclists, and the negative impact is anything from taking longer to get to where they need to be. It was the same weekend as the county fair, which is an event that's been happening in Routt County for a long time, much longer than SBT. And so there was a long list of areas that some of the rural residents had concerns with. And our team spent basically the entire year of 2024 trying to address those concerns and still to ensure that people felt that the positive impacts that we have are outweighing the negative. And a lot of what the concerns are very real. And I think the county fair was one of them. And they are moving livestock, and they are in and out going to Hayden, which is where the fair is. And they have thousands of cyclists that are making it challenging to get there on time. And so the biggest change we made was to move our event to June. And I think that works well for everyone. We are completely off of that date. A couple of other changes that we made. One, we had two-way cycling traffic. So if you have cyclists going both directions, imagine trying to get out of your driveway and there's cyclists. It's really hard to do that.
Gong show.
So we eliminated all of that. We increased the number of porta potties on course by more than you can imagine. Dozens. They're everywhere.
It's for all those gels you're handing out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And very strict rules about littering, about relieving yourself on the course. And so our communication just became very strong with our riders of, these are rural roads, please respect the roads, here's what you need to do. And I think that messaging is important. And I think gravel was in a place of Wild West mindset almost. And the messaging is good. And we all need to be reminded of, okay, you're still on an open road, stay to the right. It's not like a road race where it's shut down. So these rules that we impose, they need to exist everywhere. And they're very basic. It's like, treat a place how you would like your home to be treated. And but the messaging needed to happen. I think that as cyclists, we probably went too far of, oh, this is great. There aren't many people out here. I can ride on the left side. I can ride wherever I want. Like it. And I think that our messaging to cyclists stuck. And the outcome of last year's event was we had very little complaints. We put a command center in with the phone number everywhere. And it was basically, hey, Steamboat, hey, Route County, if you see anyone doing anything wrong, call this number. And we had something like 18 calls in a week. So nothing, like very, very few. And many of them were like, I saw trash on the road. And we said, tell us where, we'll go get it. So those changes, I think they corrected where we needed to go as a gravel event. And then the other changes we made were to communicate a ton with our community, so they know what to expect, what the hours are. They know to call me if there's like trash on the road the day after the event. There shouldn't be, but if there is, like, there's a solution. We'll take care of it.
The SBT owner is going to run out there and pick up that trash.
Yeah,
literally.
I will. If there's a sign out there that we left and it's Tuesday, our race was Sunday, I will be in my car getting that sign. And we've spent the year meeting with rural residents, really trying to help that community, because we understand that Steamboat benefits more than the rural community. I went to the fair last year and bid on a pig. So we bought a pig. Like we are doing a lot of different things. There's somebody who she supplies all the beef in Route County. And so we've been purchasing beef from her. Like everything we can do to support the rural community, we are looking to do. And we all need to coexist here. And it's really this long-standing relationship between agriculture and recreation, and how do you make those work? And so we're in it for the long haul on this journey. And my hope is that whether it's this year or next year, that this is a great story, that I'm standing next to the rural residents and they're like, we came together and made this work well for everybody. And that's our goal. And it's what we're working on all the time. But we feel like we're in a really good spot this year, and made enough changes that I think that everyone is comfortable with what we're doing.
You know, bike races are weird. Like, just picture yourself, you are a 67-year-old rancher, third generation rancher, and you see these people riding down the road dressed in their funny clothes, or they're stopping and the race is over and they're taking off their weird bib shorts. And like they're naked on the road and they're pooing and they're peeing.
Eating these weird gels. I know it is. I get it. Like every now and then I'm in a coffee shop as a civilian, like normal clothes, and I see cyclists come in. I see their helmets are on the table, their gross water bottles, or like gels are coming out of their pockets.
We forget.
And like, yeah, and I'm like, and there's like sweat all over, their dried sweat on their jerseys, and I'm like, oh yeah, cyclists are weird. We are, but and it's hard to keep that in mind when you're a part of it and you're so intimately associated with it. But I understand the difference, and we're working really hard on it. And we're not alone in Route County. We are hearing from other counties across the US. They're reaching out to us asking, like, what were the key things you did to kind of build those relationships? And so it's never going to be done, but it's something that I think we're making some good headway. And my hope and what I think is happening after this year's event, I think that the riders are going to once again feel very welcome in Route County. I think the tide has turned, and I think that the rural community is becoming a bit more accepting and appreciative of the changes we've made to accommodate their requests.
Yeah, I was doing some homework for this podcast, and I watched, I mean, you had some fairly serious town meetings, and like some fairly serious, I shouldn't say there were only a couple like actual real vocal detractors. But I was impressed, like you went in there and like everything looked like super organized, and you're bringing in $5 million to the community.
That is what our riders, so we've done some economic impact studies, and that is what our riders spend just race week, is $5 million on lodging, restaurant, shopping, transportation. So it's significant. And in a year like right now, the entire U.S. economy is struggling to some extent. And so events like this that attract people who are spending money and staying for a week become more and more compelling for the entire community.
Yeah, and there are some like obvious examples of this winning, like Leadville and Emporia. Like,
Yes,
this is doing huge
single-handedly
things.
the events have changed the dynamic and the economy of these small towns. And yeah, that's true. Steamboat's unique in that we are already a tourism destination, but it's still very important that you attract the people that you want to come here. And I would say the gravel riders are absolutely the people that you want in Steamboat. They are international. They are all ages. They are here to do something very healthy. They do spend money. So this is who we want as visitors in our town.
Okay, Amy, you are, as we've mentioned multiple times, you've done a ton of racing in the past, and you're also organizing this big gravel race. So from a racer's perspective, or I'm obviously from an organizer's perspective, you just want this to go nice and smooth, have everything be good. But from a racer's perspective, how do you want to see this event play out? Do you want to see your event won by like a huge 200-kilometer breakaway or something, or field sprint? What do you want?
A tough question. There's nothing better than a dynamic race where the person who you think is guaranteed to win keeps changing. So that is, I always want to see somebody new win. So somebody who is kind of the up and comer or the dark horse. And so that would be great. I don't know. A sprint finish it's exciting in road racing, but I'm trying to think of many gravel cyclists that are strong sprinters, and that's how none of them.
We're not going to say it's a fast sprint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. They're not necessarily known for that. So a dream race, both men's and women's, I would love to see like breakaways that keep getting caught and followed by attacks. And it's fun because it's not team based. So it's not like you're setting your teammate up to cover a breakaway. It's an individual. So it's just their legs and how they play out in the event. So I would love to see that, and then just have it be a very small sprint from that breakaway group at the end, and then a surprise winner, kind of somebody that nobody anticipated winning.
Underdog. I want the underdog always.
Yes, that's really fun when that happens. We have a decent prize purse, so it's always great for that to unfold. But I think that the circuit it's going to be a lot of attrition that is going to weed people out. It's a demanding course in that the climbing is going to catch up with them. It's not technical at all. It's pretty smooth gravel, but I think that it's the distance of the race and sort of the relentless rollers that are going to chip away at cyclists and kind of weed them out. It's going to be really fun to see that this rolling enclosed bubble, this hasn't been done in gravel racing as I've seen it. So this is road racing style, very safe. Like you're in the front or you're in the back, or then your rules of the road out of the racing bubble. And I think that's going to add an air of just a little bit more legitimacy and some excitement to it, to have that, like just trying to stay in the bubble. Like that's exciting for people to try to do. So really excited to see how it plays out, and having that separate women and men. There's no one's working off of one another from the separate gender, so that'll be fun to see too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Amy, thank you for teaching me a bit about how to organize a race. I think you've actually further convinced me to never try to organize a race, because it sounds very difficult.
Exactly. I know that wasn't the intention, but there are definitely sleepless nights. It looks really fun from the outside, but there's definitely some work involved.
Yeah, I think that people don't realize like how much goes into this. I mean, people do realize it's a lot of work, but also people show up just to race their bikes, and they're not thinking, about the porta potties and about the banners and the foods, and so it's interesting to hear from your perspective, like kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, the funny question is always like, "Oh, your race is done now. What are you going to do the next 11 months?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" The wrap up is 3 months. It's about like there's not a day off.
Amy, how far in advance are you like looking for these like for the next year? When does day one for like an event
day
start?
one is for 2026 is right now. Like we are planning the courses for 2026 and our commissioner meetings right now for 2026. And then there's, sponsor recaps happen after the event. And we open registration in December. We sell out in December. So we have to know what we're selling. And it's just wild, but it is absolutely year round.
Wow.
There's not really a down month.
Yeah. Amy, thank you so much for not just talking to us, but also for organizing events like this. It's a lot of work, and I think all the racers really appreciate it. Everybody that's listening, June 28th, June 29th, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I think the main race is sold out, but there might be some slots available for something, Amy?
Yes, we have a wait list, and the Gravel Femmes also has some spots. So grab your team, ladies.
All right, everybody, hit up Steamboat Gravel for some great racing, and pay attention at the end of June because we're going to have some good coverage. Thanks, Amy. We'll see you around.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.